Welcome to Police K-9 Radio. I'm Greg Tawney. With me, Rich Hartman. Rich, what's going on?
We're on our second interview at Hold the Line down here in Myrtle Beach, and we found a almost local. We're here with Jim O'Brien. Went to Jim's class this morning. He was working with the bite table, and it was pretty fun to watch. We got to see, I think, 4 or 5 dogs up there, some old dogs, some young dogs, some really young dogs, some dogs that are probably younger than the date of birth that's on the passport that they came with.
No, that doesn't happen, does it?
For sure.
Definitely happens. And the cool thing, and we talked about this in the last podcast, is coming out 3,000 miles away from home. Back in California on the West Coast, we're used to the trainers that we're used to. We see the same people over and over. We've been working with the same people. Coming out here, whole new world, seeing people we've never seen, seeing work that we haven't seen done before. We're seeing a lot of the same stuff, but done a different way.
Yeah, and that's what's refreshing. Is it's like, okay, we're 3,000 miles away, but I see this theme throughout training, right? And it's like it's progressed so much in the last 20 years. And Jim's no different here, just watching him work the dogs, work the grips. We were talking about, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Rich is going to post some video of some of the training that we actually saw. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, that's cool. If you want to go to the YouTube channel, Police K-9 Radio, you'll see some videos of Jim working dogs, and it might kind of make a little bit more sense. But really nice seeing the way you worked with the dogs. A real good understanding. You were friggin' excited about it. You can tell it's your frickin' passion, and that comes through in your work.
Yep.
Jim, you want to give us a quick introduction, how you got into this whole dog thing, what you were doing, and why you're here?
Yeah, for sure. So I started in 2005. I went through Castle K-9 for my first school. That's where I met Joe, actually. So I got a shepherd, did a 4-week class.
That's a starter breed.
The shepherd.
It's the introduction. It's like the marijuana of dog breeds. Like you start out, you get your shepherd, and then you get a Mal, and then a Dutchie, and then a lot of times you come back to the shepherd. Believe it or not.
You're like, this is way easier.
Yeah. So starting out, the shepherd was perfect for me. Nice low pace, trying to figure out how it works. When I left that class, 4 weeks was really short. So trying to figure out how this all worked. Left there, got super hungry. Started going to pet dog trainers, actually, for help, because my obedience wasn't quite what I wanted to. And then after that, I started getting more and more hungry, stopped, going to different training classes, tracking. I love tracking. Went to classes on tracking, e-collar, and I just kept getting more and more experience as I went along. Ended up working that dog for a couple years, switched agencies, then got a secondary dog, worked him much better the second time around, of course.
Yeah. Where are you from originally?
So I was an officer in New Hampshire and central New Hampshire.
So you're from the New England area.
Yes.
And you ended up down here.
Yeah, so that's another whole story.
Make it quick. Let's see if you can wrap it up.
Is there a lady involved?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, I've been married for 22 years.
All right.
Same woman. Yeah. 3
Not
kids.
running from one and not running to one.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
Just check.
So in a nutshell, I was, driving around doing police work and kind of looking down at that badge and saying, hey, this isn't for me anymore. Want to train dogs full time. So I took a huge gamble, moved to North Carolina.
Oh, good for you.
Went to go work for a kennel down there. Worked for 2 kennels before I started just saying, hey, it's time to do it myself. Started my own company in 2017.
Well, that is a big move.
Yeah, so honestly, I went from making pretty good money in New Hampshire to making pennies, like eating ramen noodles, whole 9 yards.
It's not that way anymore, right? You've done enough to kind of put yourself up there.
Yeah, no, it's still, you guys know from being a business owner, it's still.
It's a grind.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
But it's better than police work for sure.
So I did notice, I jumped on your website while I was in your class, actually. I'm like, I need to know more about this guy. You're doing pets, and I think you talked about it a little bit in the class. As much as we all love doing police dogs because it's kind of a passion, I do pets because it pays the bills.
Yep.
Greg is fortunate that he made his mark and is able to do a whole lot of police dogs. He does the basics. He does the maintenance training. So he doesn't necessarily have to dabble in pets as much as we do. Yep. But it is what pays my bills. And then we're able, I raise probably about 20 dogs a year, then put them into police work, raise, train, do that. And that is kind of like, I guess my analogy is it's a guy that, installs mufflers all day, but at night he works on his hot rod. Like the police dogs are my hot rod. Like that's my hobby. That's fun. And then during the day I teach Frenchies how to sit and come back to me.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how it works. And it works out good. And I noticed today the unfortunate thing is there were some blank stares when you asked if you were talking about using the markers, and Greg and I, we use markers. We're all about the markers. You're all about the markers. And when you said that in the class, half the class was like, huh? So I know there's still a lot of
magic markers.
Yeah, there's still.
What do I do with this?
Exactly.
You're like,
come on, and there's still a lot of handlers out there that seem to be not understanding the basic fundamentals of canine handling and
that
dog.
And you said place board as well, right?
Place board, yeah. You pulled out
That's
you pulled out a place board, and you talked about markers, all in a dog biting class. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit and the value of just basic communication and fundamentals with dog training as it applies to bite work.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I first started, it was pretty much yank and crank, honestly. Put the choke collar on the dog and do the old school, training. So as I started working more and more, I was like, man, I feel like the dog is doing this because he has to, not because he wants to. And then I didn't feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at, the Petco or PetSmart trainers with the clicker.
Completely opposite, right? Yeah. They're not allowed to do anything to the dog.
They can't. So then I started like, hey, what's with the clicker stuff? And then the first time I saw the clicker working was with some SF guys, actually. They were working explosive dogs, and I was watching from a distance, and I was like, man, those guys, their dogs look great. They're using clickers. So I pulled them aside, and I was like, hey, can you explain to me the clicker? Of course, they were like, screw you. Like, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah, who are you? What are you doing?
They were very good at explaining what they were doing. So after that, I just started playing around with it, and I've done it ever since. Like, they just kind of gave me a quick, dirty, hey, this is what we're marking the exact moment in time. I think I said it in class earlier. A lot of guys don't understand like what we're marking. So I look at it as a cell phone. They take a picture of a sunset. It looks pretty. Snap. We're capturing that moment in time. Though I don't use a clicker per se, I use my voice. I'm too ADHD to remember to bring the fucking clicker. So I'll just say yes, and I build it out there. Pet dogs, too, everything is clicker-based or marker-based with the pet dogs, and I use the place board. Place board for police dogs. In every police dog class, I use the place board. So I do a ton of capping. The dog sits there, and suits walk by, whatever else, dogs walk by, he just sits there. So we do a ton of place board.
So Greg and I were talking about this today. Greg gave his class, and one of the things that's important during our maintenance training and our basic training is that we have a lot of dogs muzzled up just so they're neutral to other dogs. You can get them closer to other dogs and not have to worry about anybody biting anybody or anything like that. But we just like to have dogs settle. And you talked about that as it applies to, doing the bite work, that it's important to have the dog up on the table, but it's also important that the dog be able to settle on the table, be able to settle on the ground. There could be a dog on deck that's waiting to go, and that dog's just relaxing. Not that he's not getting pumped up a little bit, right? Because they hear what's going on, but that you should have enough calmness and control with your dog that, like, yeah, there's some bite work going on across the room, but lay your ass down here and relax. You'll get your turn, as opposed to losing its shit here and not even be able to perform once it gets over there. Correct.
Yeah. And one of the biggest questions I have from guys asking is, hey, is that amount of obedience going to take from the dog's work? My answer is obviously no. But when guys are hitting the door, I want the dog quiet at the door as well. No barking, no craziness. The people in the building have to hear the announcement. So I feel like all of that sort of stuff plays in. I don't know how you guys are training now, but I find that transitions over super nice with that police board too.
Yeah, I think you can talk about that. I mean, Greg, like we were talking about earlier, Greg's got over 80 patrol teams that he's working right now. And you can imagine if every day some dog comes up to the door and they're just losing it. One, you can't hear the announcement, right? Like, we have to be fair. We have to be fair to the suspect that's inside. We're given an announcement for the reason.
Employee.
So and the employee in this case, if it's a decoy, yeah.
That actually happened to me once too.
Yeah, that really.
The announcement saved my ass. Yep.
Yeah, and so, and you knew what was coming. I mean, the actual suspect, or sometimes it's the business owner, it's the janitor, right? The reason why we do announcements is so people have an opportunity to give up. And I don't mean to get too deep on the liberal side of things, but the reality is, hey, we're given an announcement, so somebody has the opportunity to give up. So if your dog's running his mouth the whole time and you can't hear the announcement, I would say, as the guy or the gal inside that's broke into the place, then you haven't really given a fair opportunity for them to say, hey, I give up and I'm coming out. And I like to hear myself think, right? There is some benefit of just having a quiet dog.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're doing these seminars and you're working with young dogs, what's the biggest issue that you're seeing across the board in bite work, or the big top three? How about your top three issues that you're seeing? We saw some today, but what's the biggest problems that you're seeing that handlers are having a problem with their canines?
Yeah, I'm going to say overall, like just environmental, and I'm seeing it too, just going to Europe and trying to select dogs. Like, environmentals is a huge problem. It's huge. I don't think that breeding-wise they're not, I don't think that the breeding is as strong as it used to. And then secondary is working the puppies up. So you know from working puppies, right, because I do it as well.
Yeah.
They have to go somewhere at least a couple of times a week, I think, to a different location, if we do this properly. Taking them to the playground, to Home Depot, Tractor Supply, like you name it, water, making sure they're not afraid of the hose, they're not afraid of heights. So I would say environmental is the number one. Then just boldness, the dog being afraid of small stressors.
Yeah, I think I don't want to hurt the kid's feelings. Maybe he's not watching. Maybe we'll get lucky. But you asked the kid today, his dog took probably about 5 to 10 minutes for him to actually get on the table. And you asked him at some point, like, hey, does your dog have any environmental issues? And his answer right away was, no, man, he's solid. He didn't want to get on the table. So I think that goes back to selection, Greg, and you talk about that all the time. Like, we can train a lot, we can do a lot, but you got to select the right dog. And for us, when we're raising a dog, I want that dog coming in here and thinking everything is something they can go under, go over, push through the door, walk next to you. Nothing matters. I want them being almost rude, right? Just a little inconsiderate, pushing things over. I expect as I'm training a young dog, that when I leave here, the pamphlets that are over on that table are going to be knocked all over the place, and there's going to be stuff laying on the ground.
It's a fucking tornado.
Yeah, they're just coming through and they're pushing around stuff. I don't want him to be polite as a 9-month-old Malinois or a 9-month-old Shepherd. I want him just like, oh, let me check everything out. Let me push through that door. And I think you're right, because we get the videos from vendors overseas when we're looking for dogs, and they're like, how is he on slick floors? Well, they show us the same building with the same slick floors, the same stairs that lead up to the same, like, everything's the same.
They're going to look great.
They look good. They look good at your place on your things that they've seen over and over again. But then they come out, we let them out at the airport to go to the bathroom, and they're like, holy shit, there's cars, and there's, it's.
Yeah, so that's another point too. The airport's my number one test, right? And then when I say test, I'm talking walking up to the crate and opening the crate at the airport. I can tell most of the time right then and there.
When they've gotten here, or when you were over there?
No, when they've gotten here.
When they've gotten here, you open the door, and then you're like, oh, crap.
You're like, fuck, close the door. There goes a lot of money.
Yeah, and this is the thing for you handlers. You don't realize a lot of times we get dogs from overseas, there's no return policy. Like, the money's exchanged depending on where you're getting your dogs.
Yeah, and if it is a return policy, it's an argument, right?
Yeah.
My dog is perfect.
Here's a video of him doing slick floor.
So I just received 7 of those nightmares. We'll talk off of this about that. But, yes, you have to go over there and select them. And even then, sometimes, because you have a snapshot, right? So the vendor's allowing you to do the testing at their facility. The dog's comfortable there. Sometimes you can't take them off-site. Or if you take him off-site, you kind of like, hey, maybe he's just never seen this before, and you take a gamble. Right. Sometimes you gamble on. I raise a lot of labs as well. I have a lab puppy right now. She's 5 months old. She's a fucking bull in the china shop. And I always say, why is my 5-month-old lab puppy stronger than this dog that's supposedly been raised for this?
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you handlers that don't know, I mean, some of these dogs are raised on, like, dog farms over there where it's just like they're staked out. And they just go out.
Tree dogs.
Yeah, okay. So they go out. They come out with a sleeve. Here's a bite. Good. Be crazy. Drag them away. They don't use their brain for anything, and it becomes problematic because they almost become like just lazy-minded dogs where they can't problem solve because they've never had to think through anything. Versus a lot of the dogs like you guys are talking about, the ones you raise, you're taking them out. They're having to problem solve. They're having to use their brain. And we get these dogs sometimes, a lot of times from Czech.
Yeah, most of the Eastern countries, Czech, Hungary, Slovakia.
Yes.
That's where a lot of those big dog farms are.
Yes, and they are big and they're powerful and their drive is through the roof. They've never been told no. They don't know how to sit and they don't know how to think through problem solving. So it creates a real issue on the beginning stages of getting this dog. And you're like, hey, I'm going to make you sit. And he's like, ain't nobody made me do nothing. I get to bite a sleeve all the time. So we got to be really careful about how we start integrating that control into their lives.
So one of the first things that I do, and this is where I kind of had to change myself, was when I first started out, food was taboo. Like, nobody used food. Food was like the devil. But But then the more I did this, I was like, fuck, like I can't teach a dog to sit that wants to grab the Kong out of my hand. Like his mind isn't in a place to work. So then I threw the bowl away. He can't have a bowl anymore. My hand is the bowl. So the first couple of days of a handler class, everybody gets a treat pouch, and we fucking rock them, man. They put them on their hips. They fill them up with their Roa Canin. I use the big kibble one. And that dog learns to think because he has an option. He's to eat. I offer him the food. It's like if I offer you $100 and you don't take it, well, fucking shame on you for not taking it, right? After a couple of days, he's typically obliging and he wants to take the food. So I don't withhold. I always offer. If he doesn't take it,
that's on him.
That's on him.
Yeah.
So I imprint everything with food in the beginning. Sit, down, heel, everything. I even do some odor with food as well. Tracking, we use food. Once I have his brain correct, I go back to the ball.
One big thing we always talk about in INUKSHUK, talk about how good the food is and all that, but I think sometimes we forget to let people know where they can get it. INUKSHUK's pretty cool. If you're an agency and you have a lot of dogs, you can order a pallet directly to your agency, and we have several agencies that are doing that. If you're a small agency and you only have 1 or 2 dogs, you can order INUKSHUK directly off Chewy. So just wanted to put that information out there. If you have access to Chewy, Chewy can deliver that dog food directly to your front door.
Our next sponsor, Ray Allen. They have become an official sponsor of Police K-9 Radio, and it wasn't by accident. We actually sought them out because of the quality of their equipment. Matter of fact, all of our handlers in our basic handler class, we're now referring to Ray Allen. There's a one-stop shop for their harnesses, which we love. Nylon lines, gloves, leather lines, breaker bar, e-collar, the Rec Specs, Hearing Dog Pro we get from them. The Tritronics holster, because we recommend the Garmin is what we have all our handlers running with. They come with that tactical holster. So you can get everything there, one-stop shop, rayallen.com.
That's where we're at, and I think now our listeners, I mean, if you're paid attention to the last 2 or 3 podcasts, now there's starting to be a theme, right? If Stambro came on, was talking about food. We talk about food all the time. When we hand a dog off, and the fortunate thing for me is when I sell a dog, I sell it to an agency that he trains. So I know that we're both on the same sheet of music. I don't have to worry about them going off and doing dumb shit because now they're under his umbrella, and he has the same requirements. We hand a dog off to somebody. Actually, we just handed one off today, and he is a wild little bastard. And the rules for that guy is for the next 2 weeks, you're hand feeding that dog every calorie he gets. It's coming from you for doing something. And he's still going to be wild at the end of it. He's still a lot of dog, but he's going to get all of his calories from that guy, and they're going to have a relationship that's built on trust, that's built on, like, hey, man, when I need something, it comes from that guy. And the thing that he needs is calories, and that's a big deal. And you're right, we get a lot more reps. If I ask a dog to sit 20 times in a row with a piece of kibble, I don't have to worry about outing him off the kibble. I don't have to worry about, like, fuck, man, I dropped the ball on the ground and the dog's chasing it. Now I'm trying to get him back. It's just like, here, man, have food, swallow it. Here, have food, swallow it. Like, it makes the repetitions 1,000 times easier than starting off with a ball, especially on those Eastern Europe
You
dogs.
can't start off with a ball because you pull the ball out and they're freaking swallowing your arm trying to get the ball, and you're going to tell them to sit. It ain't going to happen. So it's almost like, okay, we can't use the toy.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to use food, now positive reinforcement is essentially out other than a pat on the head, and they're really not that interested in that. So it's like you're left with yanking and cranking this brand new dog that's never been yanked and cranked before, and now he's coming up the line, and now you get a dog that eats a handler, and everybody loses.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about it when we're talking about Eastern European dogs. Know that some of those problems are because of us. Like as buyers, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to see a fucking crazy dog. I want him excited. I want him so possessive over the ball. I know he's going to hunt. No, man, he's just crazy over that toy because that's all. It doesn't mean he's going to hunt. I mean, it helps because he definitely wants to play with the toy.
And we never go, hey, give me your dog with your best obedience. It's like, yeah, let's see him. Let's put him on this, table that's slick, and I'm going to take a bite and put pressure on him. I want him to dive in, and then we're like, okay, well, we'll work on obedience later. So we have created our own problem because I think it goes deeper than just obedience. It's the dog's never had to think problem solve before, and that takes a while to get that brain. And I don't even know if you ever really do get the full capacity, the cognition end of it for a dog that's done nothing but sit in a kennel for a year. It has never been learned to work out those problems like you're talking about with the puppies early on.
Yeah, I think, honestly, these dogs are institutionalized. So, like, when they come out, like, their brain is fucking mush. I have one right now that his ball drive is amazing. The other night, I was walking him around. It was at night. Next thing I know, I'm like, damn, he's got a Kong. So then I spent the next 5 minutes trying to get the Kong away, right? Trying to like, hey, let's do a little transfers. Transfers don't work. Now I have to do a slip line or trying to get that ball away. So to me, like I want workable ball drive, but I don't want OCD, like your brain, you can't think, right? And then the minute you bring this dog out, all he's doing is looking around frantically for Kongs. But he's not like, that's all he's doing now. So it'll be interesting to see like if we can mold him. The other problem that we're encountering is I have to keep these dogs for quite a while now in order to really get those brains correctly.
Yeah.
So you can't get them from Europe and then flip them really quick.
Yeah, throw them in a handler class the next week. Like, it ain't going to work.
Not unless you keep those guys for 15 or 20 weeks.
Yeah, and the average new handler doesn't have the bandwidth to handle that dog, right? They don't even know where to start with that dog.
No, they have no idea. Then what happens, too, and I saw this happen a couple of weeks ago at selection, this handler wanted to get the ball back, and he starts cranking. Never had handled a dog in his life. I was like, I wouldn't do that. But then what happens, of course, as the weeks go by and they're not seeing quick progression, then they start getting more hands-on instead of waiting and slowly merging that through. So, like I always say, if I get it properly, I should be able to have him out the Kong for a piece of kibble.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah, that's a nice balance to have. That's what we look for.
That's always a goal to say, or like further on down, can I out him off of, a suit, tell him to heel, and his reward is a piece of kibble, and he quietly sits there at a down.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking in a week or anything.
Sure.
Months down the road. But to balance it out to say, hey, you're going to be happy with what I give you. So right now I give you a 10, you're happy. Then maybe I give you 100, you're happier. But you're still happy with no matter what I give you because I'm paying you. So that's kind of the balance that I try to get to. And I think it's much easier with these Mal's shepherds and, well, not so much shepherds. I haven't had any luck with shepherds stateside. With the Malleys and the Labs that I can raise myself, is they know how to think from day one because they've earned every kibble since they were born.
Yeah, that's the same way we raise them. And the people that we get dogs from now are either stateside or in Canada. We found kind of a group of people that are like-minded like us. And most of them, to be honest, are sport-minded people. They've done a sport. They've raised for sport. They were involved in the sport. They understand how to live with a dog. They understand how to get that obedience, get that focus, get that connection with a dog. Yeah, the big group vendor dogs are kind of a nightmare for us sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that and the loss of money, really, because you can't move them.
And I think won't get too far down the rabbit hole, but I think it's good to know, like if you're in charge of buying dogs or you're a handler and you're out looking for dogs and you hear a price and it's like, oh my God, well, keep in mind at some point, a guy like you buys 7 dogs, maybe 2 of them don't make it. Maybe 5 of them, you're like, hey, these are perfect. We got to find a place for these. But you're already into it. You're not putting them on a plane, and if you do put them on a plane to go back, that's thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a. So the process of getting there, and if you raise your own dog, if you start at 0, right? Puppies come out, you whelp them, you do all that, you start moving around 8 weeks, all that. The amount of investment of time, and if your hours worth anything to you, which all of us are,
not anymore.
Yeah. By the time you get a dog to be about a year and a half, and you're ready to move it down the line. Technically, that should be about a $30,000 dog. Nobody's buying a $30,000 dog from us, but we're not making money on a $15,000 dog. None. That's just because we love it.
Yeah. When you guys sell those pups, are they being sold as like a starter dog, or are you finishing? Are they like pretty much finished?
So for me, we don't put anything on the street until it's about a year old, and I guess it's our version of a starter dog, but it has pet level obedience. It's finding the toy. It's outing toys. It's on the sleeve. It's on the suit. It's on a hidden. It's doing everything. It's outing all that stuff, and our dogs should be able to walk into a hotel like this and heel next to your side. So they're getting a nice product by the time it gets to them. But again, that takes a lot of effort, and we use all of our pet trainers. All of our pet trainers train the police dogs, so we cycle through, and they end up with a pretty nice.
That was trial and error. We initially started with some pretty green dogs in the basic handler class, and it was a nightmare. Yeah. It was the first 3 weeks working basic obedience.
Yeah.
And it was like we don't have enough time. And so now the whole rule is we need to sit down, heel, and then out off a toy minimum before
prior to starting class.
Prior to starting class, yeah.
Because we have 6 weeks. What's a basic out here?
So I'm doing 8. Okay. However, I tell the agencies that's 8 minimum. They expect 10 to 12. So I had one recently. I don't know if he's listening to this or not. By 8 weeks, he had his bags packed, ready to go home. He wasn't going home, though, because I wasn't happy with what I was seeing. And actually, he did a phenomenal job. I just wasn't quite happy with what I wanted to see. So I tell the chiefs typically It's 8 on paper, but I'm going to ask for.
Yeah, it's nice to have that flexibility.
Well, and you guys are big on tracking out here, right?
Yes.
So apparently, Jerry Bradshaw had a dog for sale the other day. It was online, and he referred to it as a West Coast dog. So apparently, we don't. Tracking's not a big thing on the West Coast. We do it,
but it's handler to handler. I mean,
Yeah.
we have some that are deep into it.
Yeah.
You know, they love it.
and we have a lot of big rural areas where it's almost necessary to track.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, on the West Coast, it's definitely not the push that it is here or in Canada.
Well, you guys don't arrest bad guys in California anymore, do you?
Shit, and we have guys.
How dare you?
We arrest them; they just don't stay in jail.
Yeah. What the DA does with them, who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing. But we have agencies where, handlers are, 20, 30 bites a year. So they're definitely busy, and they're catching real bad guys because nobody stays in jail. That part's not an exaggeration. What you're thinking is like, the courts in California, the prison system, all that. That's a whole different situation. Nobody stays in.
I was just jabbing at you.
No, it's true though. I mean, there's
take the jabs.
Yeah,
That's all right.
Yeah. Trust me, we give them too. We're all looking for a way out. We're not different than anybody else. But no, we see the same thing. They're getting a lot of activity for sure, just because nobody stays in. So we're seeing the same bad guys over and over, and they're pretty empowered. They're like, well, fuck, go ahead, send me to jail. I ain't staying.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of that, but yeah, you're right. The politics in California are rough.
So are you guys doing more like area searches versus tracking?
So the nice thing is, in most municipal areas in California, cities, every backyard is fenced.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's the nice thing or not, but it's mostly gridded. So we're able to get a pretty good perimeter quick, and then we do yard-to-yard searches. So there's a lot more opportunity to catch a guy with a good perimeter and a solid yard-to-yard. Every backyard in California, for the most part, is fenced with a 6-foot fence, where if you drive around here, you're from this area, there's almost no real backyard fences.
No, it's wide open.
It's just yard-to-yard, and you can just keep rolling through. We were talking about that today. My wife was from Kentucky, England, and then Kentucky. And it seems like everything pretty much east of Nevada, there's no backyards. Yeah. In California, every yard is a backyard fence, a 6-yard fence, a 6-foot fence.
Your Canadian friends come down. They go, oh, now that I've seen it, I can see why tracking, if they're hitting fence, how difficult that's going to be. But it's still an excuse for a lot of handlers not to do tracking.
Yeah, because if I show up at a warehouse and somebody stole something or you beat somebody over the head and I need to find them, if I'm at a warehouse, I'd like to know which direction they're going.
Yeah, if he robbed a store and ran out, give us a direction of travel and a couple turns, and we're going to be more likely to catch them. So I'm still a big proponent of tracking, but it does. If you're going to break us down regionally, you're right. I think East Coast is way more involved in it. They put a lot more priority in it.
So are you guys teaching tracking in your basic course?
We do 2 days of tracking. We just kind of show them the basics. And then we do this is how, if you want to continue this, this is how we get them started, right?
So you're just showing them basically how to start.
Just start a track. Okay. Yeah. This is how you lay your own track. And then, we'll bury a toy or we'll do a track to an article down. You mark it. Here's your toy. Okay. Or a washer or something like that. Yep. And then within that first year, we also offer Stan Semenuk with Proximity Canine. We've teamed up with him, and he'll offer a class for those that want to do a 40-hour tracking-only class.
Oh, okay.
And so there's that option if they want to do that, but the majority don't, to be honest with you. The majority, his classes, he does a couple classes a year with 7 or 8 guys, and that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's no certification requirement on the West Coast for tracking. And I know out here there is, right? Before your dog goes, working, they have to pass some type of tracking test.
I mean, I think it just depends on the agencies. So the agencies in our area are typically doing NAPWADA, IPWADA, USPCA, which they all have tracking in those certs. Some of them will do in-house certs or whatever. So when they come through my school, I don't have a school cert. I make them do a national cert.
National cert.
Yeah.
That's cool. That was quick. We hit a half hour. If people want to get a hold of you and they want to train with you, they want to get some information from you, I'm going to make you be technical now, man. Can you can you at least give us your website, maybe a phone number?
Yeah, for sure.
Smoke signal that they can.
I know that much. The website is nck9.us. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Just type in nck9 and we'll pop right up. I'm not great on the Instagrams and the Facebook. We do put some stuff on there for sure.
If somebody grabs your phone. If
Yes.
if somebody posts it for
If
you,
someone does it for me. My direct phone number is 603-986-9897. That goes directly to me. So if you want me directly, I can answer it. As far as courses, we do seminars nationwide. Typically, problem solving is my favorite thing to do, kind of like what we did today with the table. Then we also do courses, handler courses at our location.
what's your next seminar that you have coming up?
The very next seminar is the Law and Order seminar that we're doing.
That's up in Maryland?
It's up in Maryland. Yep.
It's a beach theme this month. I think that one's at Ocean City, right?
It's at Ocean City.
Oh, I worked at Ocean City for 3 months.
What?
I went to Salisbury State
Okay.
back then. So
Were you a carny? What did you do?
what? No, I was freaking. And Salisbury. Everybody's goes Salisbury Steak. No, it's Salisbury State.
No, what'd you do at Ocean City? What'd you do?
I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I was 18. You don't ask me what I did back in the.
You were selling
day when I was
cotton
freaking-
candy. Were you selling cotton
I was
candy?
bussing tables.
Nice. At a crab shack.
Yeah, we
Hot
had
dogs.
crab. You got to have some Maryland blue crab. I'm telling you,
It is good stuff.
It's good stuff.
Awesome. Hey, we really appreciate you coming on. I know this was out of the blue, and we're just trying to grab trainers that are like, hey, we watch this guy, and we value what he's teaching, and we're trying to spread the word. So
Yeah, we appreciate it.
No, it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Like mines.
In the meantime,
Train hard.
be safe.